The screaming started at exactly 2:47 p.m. on what had been, until that moment, the most beautiful Saturday afternoon the Riverside Community Market had seen all season. The sound cut through the gentle hum of families shopping, children laughing, and vendors calling out their daily specials like a knife through silk. He's got weapons. Oh my God. He's selling weapons to children. The voice belonged to Karen Whitmore, a 43-year-old real estate agent whose perfectly manicured finger was trembling as she pointed across the bustling marketplace toward a small cart decorated with colorful balloons and spinning pinwheels. Miguel Esperanza had been setting up his cart in the same corner spot of the Riverside Market for 6 years, arriving every Saturday at dawn to arrange his collection of handmade toys, rubber balls, wooden whistles, and helium balloons in neat, appealing rows. The 54-year-old father of 3 took pride in his work, carefully crafting each wooden toy in his garage workshop during the week, painting them with non-toxic colors that would make children's eyes light up with wonder. His English was accented but clear, his smile genuine as he greeted regular customers by name, remembering which children preferred dinosaur figures over cars, which parents always asked for the quieter toys that wouldn't drive them crazy at home. "Morning, Mrs. Chen," Miguel called out cheerfully to an elderly woman examining his display of wooden animal figures. "Your grandson. He still liked the elephants?" "Yes." "Mrs." Chen smiled warmly, selecting 3 small elephants carved from smooth pine. "He's building quite a zoo in his bedroom. Miguel, your work brings him such joy." These interactions were the highlight of Miguel's week, the reason he continued to wake before sunrise every Saturday, loading his carefully crafted inventory into his aging pickup truck for the 40-minute drive from his modest apartment to the market. The Riverside Community Market sprawled across 6 acres of parkland, featuring everything from organic vegetables and artisanal breads to handmade jewelry and vintage clothing. Families strolled along the gravel paths between vendor stalls, children clutching cotton candy or snow cones, elderly couples sharing funnel cake while sitting on wooden benches beneath towering oak trees. The atmosphere was quintessentially small-town American, a weekly gathering that strengthened community bonds and supported local entrepreneurs trying to make an honest living. Karen Whitmore navigated through the crowd with the practiced efficiency of someone accustomed to getting her way. Her designer handbag clutched tightly against her side, her lips pursed in their usual expression of barely contained disapproval. She had moved to Riverside 3 years earlier from the city, purchasing a sprawling colonial house on Elm Street that she immediately began renovating to match her vision of suburban perfection. Her neighbors had learned to recognize the pattern. Karen would identify something she deemed problematic, launch a campaign to address it, and pursue her cause with relentless determination until she achieved the outcome she desired. As she approached Miguel's cart, Karen's attention was drawn to a display of wooden swords and shields that the craftsman had carved for children who enjoyed playing knights and dragons. The swords were roughly 18 inches long, made from lightweight pine, with rounded edges and painted in bright colors to clearly indicate their toy nature. Next to them sat a collection of wooden slingshots, traditional Y-shaped pieces with rubber bands attached, the kind children had been playing with for generations under parental supervision. "Excuse me." Karen's voice carried the sharp tone she reserved for service workers who failed to meet her expectations. Miguel looked up from helping a young boy select a painted top, his expression immediately shifting to the careful politeness he had learned to adopt when dealing with difficult customers. "Yes, ma'am. How can I help you today?" His smile remained fixed, though his experienced eye recognized the warning signs of trouble approaching. Karen's gaze swept across his display with obvious disdain. "These weapons you're selling to children, do you have permits for them? Are you aware that there are regulations about selling dangerous items at community events? Miguel's confusion was evident as he followed her pointing finger toward his toy swords. Ma'am, these are toys. Wooden toys for children to play. They are not weapons, just, how you say, pretend swords for games. Don't patronize me with that accent, Karen snapped, her voice rising enough to attract attention from nearby shoppers. I know weapons when I see them, and these slingshots could put someone's eye out. You're creating a liability nightmare for this entire market. Miguel's patient expression began to crack as other vendors and customers turned to watch the confrontation unfold. Ma'am, please. I have been selling these toys here for 6 years. They are safe, made for children, approved by market organizers. 6 years of endangering children. Karen's voice reached a pitch that caused several parents to pull their children closer. Uncertainty rippling through the previously cheerful crowd. I'm calling the authorities right now. This is exactly the kind of dangerous situation that responsible community members need to report. She fumbled in her purse for her cell phone, her movements jerky with righteous indignation. Market organizer Sarah Mitchell rushed over from her information booth, her clipboard clutched against her chest as she tried to assess the situation. Is everything all right here, Karen? What seems to be the problem? Sarah had dealt with Karen's complaints before, including her demands that the market ban face painting because it might cause allergic reactions, and her insistence that all food vendors needed additional hand-washing stations beyond what health regulations required. This man is selling weapons to children, Sarah, and apparently you've been allowing it for years. Karen's finger jabbed toward Miguel's cart with renewed vigor. Look at those swords, those slingshots. This is a family event, not a medieval warfare demonstration. Sarah's eyes followed Karen's gesture, taking in the colorful display of obviously handmade toys that had been a beloved fixture of the market since its inception. Karen, those are toys, handcrafted wooden toys that children have been safely playing with for generations. Sarah tried to maintain her professional composure, despite the growing crowd of onlookers. Miguel has all the proper permits, insurance, and safety certifications required by our vendor agreements. These items have been thoroughly reviewed and approved. Karen's face flushed red as her authority was challenged in front of dozens of witnesses. Approved by whom? You people obviously don't understand the liability you're creating. When a child gets seriously injured with one of these weapons, don't come crying to me about lawsuits and insurance claims. Her thumb was already swiping across her phone screen, pulling up her contacts list with trembling fingers. Miguel stepped forward, his weathered hands raised in a peaceful gesture. Please, ma'am, perhaps I can show you how safe these toys are. They are made with love for children, carved by hand, sanded smooth, painted with safe colors. His voice carried the patience of a man who had weathered many storms in his life. But Karen's hostile glare cut him off mid-sentence. Don't touch me! Don't come near me! Karen shrieked, stumbling backward dramatically, as if Miguel had threatened her with violence. The reaction was so sudden and theatrical that several nearby vendors stopped what they were doing to stare in amazement. Sarah, this man just threatened me. He's becoming aggressive, trying to intimidate me into silence. The crowd around Miguel's cart had grown to nearly 30 people, a mix of confused families, concerned vendors, and curious teenagers recording the confrontation with their smartphones. The festive atmosphere of the market was rapidly dissolving into tension and unease as Karen's voice continued to rise, carrying across the parkland to draw even more attention. Ma'am, I did not threaten you, Miguel said quietly, his accent thickening slightly under stress. I only wanted to show you that these are toys, safe toys for children. Please, you can touch them. See how light they are. He picked up one of the wooden swords, holding it carefully by the painted handle to demonstrate its obviously harmless nature. Karen's reaction was immediate and explosive. He's got a weapon. Oh my God, he's brandishing a weapon at a family event. Her phone was already pressed to her ear as she dialed 911, her voice rising to a near scream that carried across the entire market. 911. I need police immediately at Riverside Community Market. There's a Hispanic man with weapons threatening people, selling dangerous weapons to children. The effect of her words was electric and devastating. Parents began grabbing their children. Vendors started packing up their displays, and the cheerful Saturday afternoon dissolved into panic and confusion. Sarah tried desperately to calm the situation, but Karen's shrill voice continued pouring gasoline on the fire she had ignited. He's got swords and weapons, sending children home with dangerous items, Karen shouted into her phone, pacing back and forth in front of Miguel's cart like a caged animal. The market organizers are covering it up, refusing to shut him down. We need immediate police response before someone gets killed. Her performance was worthy of a theater stage, complete with dramatic gestures and tear-filled eyes that spoke of mortal terror. Miguel stood frozen beside his cart, the wooden sword still in his hand, watching his life's work being destroyed by accusations that made no sense. Other vendors who had known him for years began approaching, forming a protective circle around his stall. Miguel's been here longer than most of us, called out Janet from the organic soap booth. These toys are beautiful, completely safe. My own grandchildren have dozens of them at home. But Karen was beyond reasoning, beyond facts, beyond the testimony of people who had known Miguel for years. Don't let him fool you with that innocent act, she screamed at the gathering crowd. These people know exactly what they're doing, selling weapons disguised as toys, targeting our children with violence. Her words carried ugly undertones that made several people in the crowd shift uncomfortably. The sound of sirens in the distance sent a chill through the market as everyone realized that Karen's 911 call was bringing real consequences. Sarah tried one last time to defuse the situation, speaking directly into Karen's phone when she could grab it for a moment. This is Sarah Mitchell, market organizer. There is no emergency here, just a misunderstanding about legal toy sales. Karen snatched her phone back with fury. They're all in on it. The whole market is protecting this weapons dealer. Her voice had reached a fevered pitch that suggested she actually believed her own fabricated crisis. I need multiple units here immediately. This situation is completely out of control. She hung up and immediately began filming Miguel with her phone, narrating her own twisted version of events for social media posterity. The first police car arrived within minutes, followed quickly by two more, their red and blue lights strobing across the parkland like a disco ball of law enforcement. Officer James Rodriguez stepped out of the lead vehicle, his trained eyes immediately assessing the scene. A crowd of agitated people surrounding a Hispanic man holding what appeared to be a wooden object, and a well-dressed white woman gesticulating wildly while pointing accusations. Karen rushed toward the officers before they could properly survey the situation. Officers, thank God you're here. That man has been selling weapons to children all day, and when I tried to report it, he threatened me with a sword. Her voice carried the breathless urgency of someone reporting a terrorist attack, complete with trembling hands and wide, frightened eyes. Without waiting to hear the full story or examine the evidence, Officer Rodriguez's partner, Officer Bennett, began approaching Miguel with his hand resting on his service weapon. Sir, please drop whatever you're holding and step away from the cart. The command echoed across the market with the authority of armed law enforcement, causing the remaining families to scatter like startled birds. Miguel immediately dropped the wooden sword and raised his hands, his face pale with the terror of a man who understood exactly how dangerous this situation had become. Officers, please, these are toys, just wooden toys. I am a vendor here. I have permits. I have been here 6 years. His words tumbled out in a rush, desperation replacing his usual calm demeanor. But the damage was already done. Karen's hysterical 911 call had painted a picture of armed danger that was difficult to erase, with calm explanations. "Those are weapons," Karen shouted from behind the police officers, her voice still carrying the same theatrical panic. "Look at those slingshots. Those swords. He's been targeting children all day, grooming them with violence." Officer Bennett moved closer to Miguel's cart, his tactical training interpreting the colorful display through the lens of potential threat assessment. The wooden swords, viewed without context and under pressure, could theoretically be used as clubs. The slingshots, however harmless their intended purpose, were mechanisms designed to propel objects at velocity. Karen's frantic narration provided a sinister interpretation for every innocent item. "Sir, we're going to need you to move away from the cart while we investigate these allegations," Officer Rodriguez said, his tone professional but firm. Sarah Mitchell pushed forward through the crowd, her clipboard and vendor documentation ready to prove Miguel's legitimacy. But the officers were focused on immediate crowd control rather than administrative details. "Officers, I'm the market organizer," Sarah called out urgently. "This vendor is fully licensed and insured. Those are legal toy sales, wooden toys that have been approved by our safety committee. This woman has made false accusations before, and she's doing it again." Her voice carried the desperate authority of someone watching a terrible mistake unfold in real time. Karen spun toward Sarah with renewed fury. "False accusations? Are you kidding me? Look at those weapons. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You people have been covering this up for years." She turned back to the officers with theatrical urgency. "They're all protecting him. This is a conspiracy to sell weapons to children in our community." The situation was spiraling beyond anyone's control as more police units arrived, responding to what dispatch had characterized as a weapons incident at a public gathering. Officer Rodriguez found himself managing not just the original complaint, but a growing crowd of agitated people, conflicting stories, and mounting pressure to take decisive action. "Everyone needs to step back and give us room to work," Rodriguez announced, his voice carrying across the crowd with practiced authority. But stepping back meant abandoning Miguel to face the accusations alone, and several vendors refused to move. "This man is innocent," called out Bob from the kettle corn stand. "I've known him for 6 years. He's got 3 kids of his own. This is insane." The crowd's support for Miguel only seemed to inflame Karen further. "Look at how they're protecting him. This is exactly the kind of community cover-up that allows dangerous people to operate freely." She began filming again, documenting what she described as police bravery in the face of community resistance to justice. Officer Bennett made the decision to secure Miguel's cart as evidence, beginning to overturn tables and bag individual items for later examination. The sight of police destroying Miguel's carefully arranged display sent shockwaves through the vendor community, many of whom depended on their Saturday sales to pay weekly bills and support their families. "Please, officers, these toys take me all week to make," Miguel pleaded as his handcrafted wooden animals scattered across the gravel. "This is my living. My family depends on this. Please, just examine them. You will see they are safe." His voice cracked with the desperation of a man watching his livelihood being destroyed by forces beyond his comprehension. The crowd began pushing closer, despite police commands to maintain distance, their indignation at the destruction of an innocent man's business overriding their caution about law enforcement authority. Parents, who had bought Miguel's toys for their own children, shouted testimonials about their safety and quality, but their voices were lost in the chaos. Karen seized the moment to escalate further. "They're rioting! Look at them. They're trying to protect the weapons dealer by overwhelming police." Her phone captured the crowd's movement, but her narration twisted their peaceful defense of Miguel into something sinister and threatening. "We need more officers here immediately. This is turning into a mob situation. Officer Rodriguez called for backup as the situation deteriorated beyond standard crowd control protocols. The market, which had been a peaceful family gathering 30 minutes earlier, now resembled a conflict zone with dozens of agitated people, overturned vendor tables, and an atmosphere of mutual hostility that threatened to explode into actual violence. When Miguel tried to approach his overturned cart to salvage some of his handcrafted items, Officer Bennett interpreted the movement as potentially threatening. "Sir, stay back. Do not approach the evidence." The sharp command, delivered with a hand on his weapon, caused Miguel to stumble backward in fear, tripping over debris from his destroyed display. The fall looked more dramatic than it was. But in the charged atmosphere, it appeared to some witnesses that Miguel had been pushed or struck. Several people in the crowd began shouting, "Police brutality," while others tried to help Miguel to his feet. The cacophony of voices, accusations, and conflicting commands created an environment where clear communication became impossible. Officer Bennett, interpreting the crowd's movement toward Miguel as potentially threatening to officer safety, made the decision to physically restrain the vendor. The tackle was textbook police procedure, designed to quickly subdue a suspect without causing serious injury. But Miguel's 54-year-old body hit the gravel hard, his right shoulder taking the brunt of the impact with a sickening pop that several witnesses heard clearly. The sound of Miguel's pained cry cut through all other noise like a knife through fabric. "My shoulder. Please. I cannot move my arm." His voice carried the genuine anguish of serious injury, replacing the controlled panic of the previous confrontation with raw physical trauma that no one could misinterpret or dismiss. Karen's reaction to Miguel's obvious injury was to film more intensively, her phone capturing what she narrated as the arrest of a dangerous weapons dealer who resisted police authority. Her complete lack of empathy for a man writhing in pain on the gravel shocked even some of the officers, who had expected her to show at least basic human concern once someone was actually hurt. Sarah Mitchell knelt beside Miguel, her market organizer training including basic first aid. "Don't move. Miguel, your shoulder looks dislocated. We need an ambulance here immediately." She looked up at Officer Rodriguez with desperate authority. This man has done nothing wrong, and now he's seriously injured because of false accusations. The arrival of emergency medical services marked the transition from community dispute to serious legal incident. Paramedic Lisa Wong quickly assessed Miguel's shoulder, determining that he had suffered a complete dislocation that would require hospital treatment and possibly surgery. "We need to transport him immediately," she announced, beginning preparations for emergency evacuation. As Miguel was loaded onto a stretcher, his painted wooden toys scattered across the gravel like confetti after a children's party gone horribly wrong. The full scope of the disaster began to sink in for everyone, except Karen. Families who had been enjoying a peaceful Saturday afternoon were traumatized. Vendors had lost sales and inventory, and an innocent man was heading to the hospital with serious injuries. Officer Rodriguez began collecting witness statements, starting with Sarah Mitchell's detailed account of Miguel's 6-year history at the market, his perfect safety record, and Karen's pattern of frivolous complaints about various vendors and activities. The picture that emerged was troubling: a vendetta disguised as public safety concern, escalated to dangerous levels through 911 misuse. Karen remained unrepentant, even as the ambulance pulled away with Miguel inside. "I did exactly what any responsible citizen should do when they see weapons being sold to children," she declared to Officer Rodriguez. "If that man got hurt, it's because he resisted police authority and created a dangerous situation for everyone here." But other witnesses provided very different accounts. Janet from the soap booth had filmed much of the confrontation on her phone, capturing Karen's initial approach to Miguel's cart, her escalating accusations despite his patient explanations, and her theatrical call to 911 that bore no resemblance to the actual situation on the ground. Mrs. Chen, the elderly woman who had been buying wooden elephants for her grandson when the confrontation began, approached Officer Rodriguez with quiet dignity. "Officer, I have been coming to this market for 8 years. Miguel makes beautiful toys for children, safe toys that bring joy to families. This woman," she gestured toward Karen, "has been causing trouble here for years, complaining about everything and everyone." Bob from the kettle corn stand provided the most damaging testimony against Karen. "She's been trying to get Miguel shut down for months, ever since he wouldn't move his cart to a different location to improve her shopping experience. Last month, she complained that his balloons were too loud when they popped. The month before that, she said his wooden whistles constituted noise pollution." As Officer Rodriguez continued collecting statements, a pattern emerged that painted Karen's 911 call not as a legitimate safety concern, but as the culmination of a personal vendetta escalated to dangerous levels. The wooden toys that had triggered the emergency response were obviously harmless when examined outside the context of her hysterical accusations. The body camera footage from Officer Bennett's equipment provided the most objective record of events, showing Karen's theatrical performance, Miguel's confused attempts to explain his legitimate business, and the crowd's peaceful efforts to defend an innocent vendor. The footage would later become crucial evidence in the legal proceedings that followed. News of the incident spread rapidly through social media, with multiple videos and accounts painting a picture of injustice and community trauma. The Riverside Community Market, which had been a beloved weekly tradition for hundreds of families, was now associated with false accusations, police overreach, and serious injury to an innocent small business owner. Miguel spent 18 hours in Riverside General Hospital, undergoing surgery to repair his dislocated shoulder and torn rotator cuff. The injury would require months of physical therapy and permanently limit his ability to perform the detailed woodworking that had been his passion and livelihood for decades. The financial impact was devastating for a family already living paycheck to paycheck. Karen faced immediate consequences as the investigation revealed the extent of her deception. District Attorney Maria Santos reviewed the evidence and determined that Karen's 911 call constituted criminal false reporting, designed to harass and intimidate a legitimate business owner. The charges carried potential jail time and significant financial penalties. The first criminal charge was inciting a riot, based on Karen's deliberate escalation of a peaceful situation into community-wide panic and violence. Her 911 call had directly caused the police response that led to Miguel's injury and the destruction of multiple vendor displays in the resulting chaos. The charge carried a maximum sentence of 5 years in prison. Additional charges included filing a false police report, a felony in cases where the false report leads to injury or property damage, and harassment of a business owner based on national origin, which elevated the charges to hate crime status under state law. Karen's recorded statements about these people and her pattern of targeting Miguel specifically provided evidence of discriminatory intent. The civil lawsuit that followed was even more devastating for Karen. Miguel's legal team, working pro bono after the case gained national attention, sought damages for medical expenses, lost income, pain and suffering, and the destruction of his handcrafted inventory. The total claim exceeded $200,000, far more than Karen's real estate income could support. Market vendors filed a class action lawsuit for their collective losses from the incident, including destroyed inventory, lost sales, and the ongoing damage to the market's reputation. Saturday attendance had dropped by 60% in the weeks following the incident, as families associated the previously safe community gathering with conflict and potential danger. Karen's attempts to justify her actions in court backfired spectacularly when she testified that she knew weapons when she saw them and had acted to protect the community from dangerous elements. Her words, recorded by court stenographers and broadcast on local news, served only to strengthen the prosecution's case for discriminatory intent. The judge's ruling was swift and comprehensive. Karen was found guilty on all criminal charges and sentenced to 18 months in county jail, 3 years of probation, and 500 hours of community service specifically focused on learning about immigrant communities and small business challenges. The sentence sent a clear message about the consequences of weaponizing emergency services against innocent citizens. The civil judgments were equally severe. Karen was ordered to pay Miguel's complete medical expenses, lost income for the 6 months of recovery, and punitive damages totaling $150,000. She was also required to pay for the replacement of all destroyed vendor inventory and contribute $50,000 to a community fund for market improvements and security. Perhaps most significantly, Karen was permanently banned from all city-sponsored markets, festivals, and community events. The restraining order specifically prohibited her from approaching within 500 feet of any location where Miguel was conducting business, effectively ending her ability to harass him or other vendors in the future. The financial pressure forced Karen to sell her Elm Street house to pay the civil judgments, and her real estate license was suspended pending review by the State Professional Licensing Board. Her social media posts about the incident had gone viral in the worst possible way, making her unemployable in a profession that depended on community trust and positive reputation. Miguel's recovery was slow but steady, supported by an outpouring of community sympathy and financial assistance that restored faith in human decency. A GoFundMe campaign raised over $75,000 to help with medical expenses and business rebuilding, while local woodworking clubs volunteered to help recreate his destroyed inventory. The Riverside Community Market returned stronger than ever, with new policies protecting vendors from harassment and a zero-tolerance approach to discriminatory behavior. Miguel's corner spot was marked with a small plaque recognizing his contribution to the community and his resilience in the face of injustice. Children who had grown up playing with his toys returned as adults to buy them for their own children. On the first Saturday, after Miguel returned to the market, his limited mobility requiring assistance from fellow vendors to set up his display, the community response was overwhelming. A line of customers stretched across the parkland, families waiting patiently to purchase wooden toys, not just for their practical value, but as symbols of their support for justice and community solidarity. Mrs. Chen was among the first customers, selecting wooden elephants for her grandson as she had done countless times before. "These toys represent more than play," she told Miguel, with tears in her eyes. "They represent the kind of community we choose to be, the kind of people we choose to support, and the kind of future we're building for our children." The incident became a case study in law enforcement training programs about the importance of thorough investigation before taking action, the dangers of racial profiling in emergency response, and the need to distinguish between legitimate threats and manipulative false reporting. Officer Bennett, whose quick action had caused Miguel's injuries, took early retirement and became an advocate for police reform. Karen served her full sentence without eligibility for early release, the judge noting that her complete lack of remorse and continued insistence that she had done nothing wrong demonstrated her ongoing danger to community safety. Her probation conditions required monthly counseling sessions focused on addressing racial bias and anger management. Years later, the Riverside Community Market incident was remembered not for the trauma it caused, but for the way the community responded with unity, justice, and unwavering support for one of their own. Miguel's wooden toys continued to bring joy to children throughout the region, each one crafted with the love and resilience of a man who had survived hatred and emerged stronger. The market expanded to include educational programs about cultural diversity and small business support, funded partly by Karen's court-ordered contributions. Children learned not just to play with toys from different cultures, but to understand and appreciate the hands that made them and the stories behind every carefully crafted piece. On quiet Saturday mornings, when the market was just beginning to come alive with vendors setting up their displays and early customers browsing for fresh produce, Miguel would sometimes pause in arranging his colorful toys to reflect on how much had changed. The wooden swords and slingshots that had once been called weapons were now recognized for what they had always been: instruments of imagination, creativity, and innocent play. The community had learned to see past fear and prejudice to embrace the truth that had been there all along, waiting patiently to be acknowledged and celebrated.